Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. His phone buzzed twice on the counter. My hand moved first. I flipped it over, notification preview locked to message, nothing else. I'm Kara, 34, and my pulse hit the ceiling. The front door latch clicked behind me and I didn't breathe. He stepped in slow, no smile, eyes on the phone. Work thing, his jacket stayed on, keys still in his fist. I slid the phone into the drawer and shut it. Cool, I said, let's read it together. His knuckles whitened. He reached for the drawer, I leaned on it, steady and small. Later he tried, a cough, a shrug, the casual routine. The phone buzzed again inside wood, a quieter animal. I pictured a face behind that buzz, waiting for him. Unlock it, I said, calm because fear needs edges. He laughed once too light, then checked the wall clock. We're late for nothing, I added, and my mouth dried. He looked at me, then the drawer, calculating the cost. I'm not hiding anything. He lifted both hands, surrender pose. Great, I said, prove it. The drawer felt warm. His jaw twitched, micro storm, then he turned for the sink. Water roared, the buzz returned, I killed the faucet. We stared each other down, 2 inches, 10 years, a canyon. 16, I corrected quietly, and his blink answered that. Boundaries, he tossed out, therapy word like a smoke screen. Transparency, I shot back and my chest burned hotter. He tried humor, what do you think you'll find, coupons. The drawer handle pressed my wrist, I didn't move. Then coupons won't mind sunlight, I said, holding his gaze. Another buzz answered for him and my stomach flipped. He put on his soft voice, the one that settles storms. Trust me, it whispered, my skin remembered too many times. I heard a car idle outside, different engine, unfamiliar rhythm. He heard it too and his eyes tilted left. Expecting someone, I asked, I already knew the answer. No, he said too quick and reached for his jacket. I stepped between him and the door, my heartbeat drummed. Inside the drawer the phone throbbed like a caught fish. He reached past me, gentle force, trying not to make it worse. I planted my feet, unlock, then leave if you want. He exhaled through his nose, long and controlled, almost bored. The idling car cut out and silence turned sharper. He opened the drawer, he didn't touch the phone. Your turn, he said, as if fairness fixed secrets. I lifted it, held it level, watched his pupils tighten. Face up, I said, and my hand stopped shaking. He typed the code, slow, like that could change the message. I watched his thumbs hover again, then finally press. Home screen bloomed, messages stacked, one pinned with a heart. He tried to swipe left, but my finger was faster. Top thread opened, I read the first line out loud. Do we need milk? I heard myself say too flat. His shoulders dropped a fraction, relief pretending to be truth. Then I scrolled and the truth showed teeth. Above the milk text sat a photo cropped tight. No faces, just his wristwatch on an unfamiliar table. Timestamp from last night, later than he told me. Caption read, miss you already, followed by nothing else. My throat burned, he reached for the phone, palms open. I stepped back 2 careful steps, eyes on the screen. I scrolled further, dinners, reservations, a weekend marked hours. He swallowed hard and the room tilted toward decision. Who is this? I asked, no anger, just the cliff. A client, he tried, eyes flicking to the door again. I looked at the pet name above the thread, short and sweet. I didn't recognize it, and that scared me more. Does she know I exist? My voice surprised us both. He touched the doorway with 2 fingers, stalling tactic, old habit. Of course, he murmured, then blinked at his own lie. My chest went still, and the next move felt heavy. I took a breath, measured, clean, like bracing for impact. Call her, I said, put it on speaker right now. His mouth formed a protest, then cut itself off midair. The phone vibrated again, new message, 3 dots dancing. He stared at the dots as if they might vanish. They didn't, a new line appeared, short and intimate. Same time tonight, it read, my skin went cold. He looked up finally and I saw the switch flip. Let me explain, his voice dropped half an octave, pleading. I pressed call before the courage drained out of me. The ring purred, then clicked, then a woman breathed hello. I set the phone between us, flat table, sharp silence. Hey, I started. This is Kara, his partner. Who are you? A gasp, a pause that stretched, a clatter in the background. He told me you two were done, she said, very clear. My hand tightened around the edge. He closed his eyes. I ended the call, no speeches, no tremble, just gravity. He moved toward me, reaching, then stopped at my stare. We can fix this, he tried, voice shaking for once. Something in me answered back, and it was yes. I put the phone in his palm and let it weigh. GH. Put a face up tonight, I said, each word steady. Or pack, I added, and felt the floor steady under me. He nodded once, and I knew a door had opened. He slid the phone onto the table, screen lit, settings menu open. Do Not Disturb was on, with one thread allowed through quietly. I flicked the toggle off and held it flat between us. Leave everything visible, I said, and my teeth touched. He reached, fingers twitching, then switched to a softer posture. Let's reset, he murmured, palms up, breathing slow on purpose. I opened the muted thread and scrolled until today. A line waited there, tonight, same place, and my stomach clenched. Speaker call, I said, now. My thumb hovered over her name. He shook his head once, eyes shiny, voice almost a whisper. Text me when you're alone, I read from last night. Alone meant me erased, and that detail cut clean. I typed one sentence from his phone, running early, call me. His eyes went wide, then narrowed, then hunted for an exit. The screen lit again, 3 dots, then a ringing tone began. I hit accept and set the phone down between us. Where, she asked, breath quick, no greeting, no cushion. The usual, I answered, and watched his shoulders drop hard. Half an hour, she said, corner door, then the line ended. He stared at the wall, and I felt something steady. Keys, I said. He didn't move. I waited out the silence. He swallowed. We don't have to do this. His jaw trembled. We already are, I replied and held out my hand. He gave me the ring of metal like it burned. I drove. He stared straight ahead with a dead phone. He kept touching his pocket like the screen might save him. My pulse found a rhythm and then refused to slow. I rehearsed one question: does she know the whole picture? We stopped near the corner door with the scratched frame. He stayed inside the car. Don't ambush her, he muttered. You built the trap, I said, and stepped onto the sidewalk. I left the engine off to hear footsteps coming. I texted her our exact spot and turned my back to him. He opened his door halfway and then shut it again. Last chance drifted from inside the car like a plea. My hand shook once, then settled on the phone. The entrance swung open and a host glanced toward the list. A name sat at the top, his nickname, Party of Two. I snapped a photo and felt the air tilt toward choices. Behind me, his door finally clicked open. She arrived at a brisk walk with her jaw set. Eyes on me first, then on him, then on the doorway. You, she said, standing close enough to read my pulse. Is this real or another stall? Her voice cut clean. Tonight was booked under him, I said, showing the screen. Her lips pressed together, then released like a loaded spring. How long? She asked, but she was looking at him. He rubbed his temple and didn't answer fast enough. I pointed at the entrance. We go in together or not? Her gaze stayed steady. Together. She slid her phone into a pocket. He took one step back, then forced a smile that cracked. We crossed the threshold, and the host straightened with recognition. Table will be ready in 2, the host announced without blinking. Name? I asked, even though I knew what would come. He checked the list and read it out clearly. The last word wasn't mine, and my breath hitched hard. I felt heat rise but kept my voice even and low. Change that reservation, I said, tapping the counter once. Add my name and hers, I added, pointing without flinching. The host hesitated, then lifted his pen with a nod. He tried again to steer. Let's talk outside. A hand hovered. I didn't move. She didn't move. The host looked bored. A server waved that the table was ready sooner than promised. We followed the wave, and I braced for whatever waited. I pulled the chair out. He stayed standing like flight was possible. She sat opposite me and placed her phone between elbows. He hovered a second too long and then lowered himself. Ground rules, I said. No spin, short answers, clear. The table tightened. A server approached with a nod that felt practiced. Usual booth next time, he smiled toward the man beside me. I raised an eyebrow and tapped the reservation list photo. How often is next time? I asked, and the air pressed back. Monthly, the server replied, eyes flicking to the other woman. Sometimes twice, he added, then realized he had said too much. I thanked him, and he retreated fast with an apology. The word monthly stayed between our plates like a loaded card. I centered his phone and opened the contacts search. Typed the nickname from the list and saw a pinned thread. Underneath it, another entry held the same avatar with period. Two versions of her name, one with calendar access, one without. Why two entries? She asked, tapping the second with one nail. He reached for water he hadn't ordered and missed the glass. So I could keep work alerts separate, he muttered with ooh. Conviction. I opened the calendar view and felt my shoulders lock. A repeating block glowed across Fridays at 6, private. I clicked one and a note field stuttered onto the screen. Practice ordering oysters, it read with a heart and timestamp. Her jaw clicked shut and I felt heat climb my neck. Oysters are cute, she said, voice like a blade on stone. What about last Sunday at 11? She angled her head hard. I scrolled to Sunday and tapped another block titled Family. Inside the note, a single word waited: photos. Family, I repeated, letting it hit. Photos of who? He rubbed his brow and stared at the menu without reading. You two keep escalating this, he murmured to the table. Answer, I said, and my palm anchored to the wood. Her, he lifted his chin toward me without meeting my eyes. Proof, she countered, already unlocking her own phone with intent. She pulled up a gallery of posed smiles at a park. He wore my hoodie and a ring box bulged in his pocket. You tried a proposal rehearsal, I said, chest cold and steady. He inhaled sharply and nearly stood, then forced himself back down. It was a joke, he insisted, watching the server for rescue. The server veered away and left us with the word joke. I swiped to payments and opened wallet history on his device. A card nickname popped up labeled with her initials and date. The card profile showed my address set as the billing location. Her mouth twisted and I heard the gears lock into place. You used her address on my card, she asked, leaning in. No, he tried, but the letters were right there blinking. I took a photo of the screen and texted it to myself. Fraud lives here, I said, and he finally flinched. He pushed his chair back. We should leave before this gets public. Perfect, I answered. Witnesses help when stories shift later. She nodded once and opened a new message to a friend. Share live location, she typed, and her thumb didn't shake. I returned to messages and scrolled higher for the earliest overlap. Found a line from months ago flagged with a tiny star. Next summer we pick a date, it read with fireworks. I felt a pulse of grief and then something harder took lead. Which date? I asked softly, eyes never leaving his face. He exhaled and stared at the salt like it held answers. June, he whispered, and even that sounded doubtful and thin. Year, she pressed, and the room seemed to tilt again. His silence stretched. I tapped the starred message once more. The reply beneath it carried his photo at a jeweler's counter. A caption promised a design and a delivery timeline. Custom, she breathed, and her mouth went dry on the word. I leaned in and kept my voice clear and clipped. Tell both of us your version in 2 sentences maximum. He rubbed his neck and stared past us at the door. Testing feelings, he managed, afraid of labels. My skin crawled. Here's mine, I said, and counted on my fingers. You cultivated 2 lives, you spent joint money without consent. You booked tradition nights under a name that erased me. Tonight you bring the receipts, then we decide who exits. She lifted her phone camera and aimed it at the screen. Confirm you understood, she instructed, voice firm and unwavering. He nodded once and the lens caught the expression clean. I felt something in my chest unlock without noise. Final piece, I added, reopening messages with the pinned heart. I tapped contact info and scrolled to emergency bypass setting. It was enabled for her thread at all hours without restriction. He watched my finger hover and knew what came next. I turned the bypass off and slid the phone across. You earn access back with proof, not begging, I stated. Logs, statements, every reservation detail since January. He stared down, and I knew we had finally entered the real fight. The server placed a bottle with 2 etched flutes already waiting. "Congratulations again," he announced, then froze at our faces. "Who arranged this?" I asked, tapping the folded card by him. He pointed at the man beside me, and the room tightened. I opened the card and read the printed note aloud. "To many more Thursdays together," the script matched previous bookings. I angled it toward her and watched her jaw lock. "Thursdays," I repeated, and my pulse kicked hard. "Bill now," I told the server, and he hurried off. I slid his phone back and opened the dining app. A loyalty profile loaded with a photo I had never seen. Status tier glittered beside a line labeled Partner Benefits. "Partner," I read, then tapped the benefits list for proof. "Free weekends, priority holds, complimentary celebrations set up." Her eyes flicked to him and then straight back to me. "Show the email on file," she said, and I swiped. A private address popped up that wasn't our shared one. Underneath it, a backup listed mine as notifications only. I screenshotted the page and sent it to my own number. He upped his forehead and looked 10 inches shorter. The server returned with the printed check and a neat folder. I opened it and found a running tab labeled Standing. Dates in a column matched those Thursday reservations perfectly. Each entry used our joint card ending in my digits. "Reverse these tonight," I told him, and the server swallowed. "We need signatures from the account holder," he whispered carefully. "That's him," she answered, pointing without mercy. He stared at the pen as if it might bite. I took the phone again and opened his ride receipts. Routes repeated from our street to a short-stay building nearby. A pattern jumped out like a siren across the screen. "Weeknights after 11, 40 minutes door to door." "Explain this route," I asked, scrolling slow to force the view. He placed both hands flat and stared at his knuckles. "Client privacy," he muttered, voice scraping at the edges. "Clients sleep well then," she answered, eyes bright with fury. I tapped mail and searched the private address for paperwork. A message appeared titled "Application Approved" with an attachment. I opened the file and found a lease addendum with 2 lines. His name, her name, a blank move-in date next month. She recoiled and then leaned in closer like a boxer. "You promised a tour Friday," she said without blinking. My lungs stung, but the anger kept me anchored. "Cancel it while we watch," I said, and pushed the screen. He fumbled the password and failed it twice with shaking thumbs. "Use Face ID," I instructed, and angled the phone toward him. The mail app unlocked and the confirmation sat open again. I pressed reply and typed one sentence before he could breathe. "Please withdraw my application effective immediately." I hovered on send. "Your move," I told him, and waited for backbone. He nodded once and tapped the paper plane icon. I watched the whoosh and felt a gear shift inside me. The server drifted back with a cautious cough near my shoulder. "Manager can split charges with written disputes tonight," he offered gently. "Do that," I said, and passed the folder without looking away. She filmed the page with a steady hand for record. A new notification slid across the top of his phone. Shared album invite from her profile with a title I recognized. I opened it and saw apartment photos with floor labels. One picture showed a key ring with 2 tags. "Where is this key now?" I asked, eyes on his pockets. He hesitated just enough to answer the question. I extended my palm and waded through the twitching silence. He placed a single tag there and kept the other hidden. "Both," I said, and didn't blink until he moved. He dug deeper and pulled the second with a wince. I set them beside the check like evidence laid out. "We return these to the office tomorrow at 9. Her phone buzzed with a reply from someone named Paula. "I'm outside if you need backup," the text read. "Bring her in," I suggested, feeling my resolve harden. He shifted in his chair like the floor was tilting. I opened his cloud settings and checked shared contacts. A starred entry showed my number tagged as assistant. I swallowed once and let that insult land clean. "Correct this now," I said, and the word now cracked. He changed it to partner with a shaking thumb and hit save. "That label sticks only if the facts match," I added. "Proof runs first, titles follow later or not at all." He stared at the table and finally dropped his shoulders. She leaned toward me and spoke low enough for only us. "I'll file a police report for the card usage tonight." Good, I answered, feeling my hands go very still. After that, we called the landlord and stopped the transfer. The manager arrived and placed 3 forms on the surface. Chargebacks require initials here and here, he explained carefully. I signed for my half and slid the pen across. He gripped it and scrawled jagged letters without air. I looked up when the door opened and a woman entered. She walked straight toward us with her arms already set. Paula, the newcomer, introduced, locking eyes with him instantly. Anything to add before we escort you out? He glanced at each of us like choosing a last lifeline. I pushed the keys back and tapped the receipts once. Next stop is a station and then a bank, I said. He nodded slowly and the fight finally left his face. The manager cleared his throat and stacked the signed forms. Refunds initiated, he confirmed and handed me a duplicate. I folded it and kept my voice flat as concrete. You come home for documents only, nothing else enters that door. He stood and reached toward his pocket again out of habit. I lifted a palm and he froze before touching the phone. Leave it unlocked on the table, I told him quietly. He did, and the screen glowed with a fresh message. The notification pulsed across his screen, new text from her contact. I turned the phone so we all could read it. Still on for tea? All night, it asked, neat and confident. He stared at the table and didn't answer fast enough. I typed one reply, plans changed, call me now. Her number rang through immediately and filled the space. I hit speaker and set it between our wrists. Who is with you? She asked, breath tight and ready. 2 women and a manager, I answered, eyes never leaving him. We're reviewing reservations and card charges in real time. She exhaled one short sound, then recovered quick and direct. Are you safe? She asked, and I felt something shift. Safe enough, I said, and nodded toward the keys. He pushed his chair back a fraction and then froze. We will return the tags tomorrow, I added, flat voice. Record that, she said, and my spine stayed straight. I ended the call and opened his banking app. Transaction alerts stacked in a tidy line like staged moves. I scrolled and marked each overlap with a screenshot. He held his breath through every tap and knew why. The manager returned with dispute forms already prefilled. 2 signatures and a copy of identification, he offered carefully. She slid her license across without a tremor. I placed mine next to it and kept watching him. He reached for his wallet and paused over every slot. Photo, I said, and lifted my phone without blinking. He finally produced the plastic and set it down. My camera clicked and the paper trail grew teeth. I opened his cloud drive and searched for drafts. A folder appeared labeled Promises with 9 documents inside. Document 1 had dinner scripts and apology lines numbered. Document 2 listed gift ideas and dates to deploy. I felt heat rise and kept my voice low. You rehearsed remorse like a schedule, I said, deliberate. He squeezed his hands together until the knuckles blanched. Delete the folder, I added, and handed him the screen. He hovered at the confirm prompt and looked at me. Backups, I asked, and he blinked once too late. I flipped to settings and located the archive toggle. Off, then purge, then gone for good if he complied. She opened a group chat named Safety Net and added me. Drop everything there, she wrote, fingers fast and precise. I uploaded the receipts and the reservation photo pile. Paula added a timestamp note and a short checklist. I picked up the keys again and weighed them. Office at 9, I repeated, steady as a metronome. Police before or after, she asked, eyes steady. Before, I said, and the word felt like a hinge. He glanced at the exit and then at the manager. No leaving without the forms, the manager reminded gently. He signed where the arrows pointed, hand unsteady. The pen skid told its own quiet truth. I sent myself one last email from his account. Subject line disclosure, attachments numbered and clean. Her phone pinged the same files a second later. Redundancy kept me breathing and killed his wiggle room. Next step is home, I said, rising first. Pack essentials and leave access cards on the counter. He nodded with the expression of someone cornered. The manager opened a path and watched him pass. We reached the car and I kept the phone. He reached toward the glove compartment and I blocked it. No extra devices, I warned, palm flattening his attempt. He sank back and stared at the windshield like a wall. On the drive, he tried quiet excuses that never landed. I kept my answers short so they pierced clean. Stop, he tried again, voice thin and hopeful. I changed lanes and let the silence chew through him. At the apartment door, I handed him a small bag. Only papers and chargers, I said, counting under breath. He moved inside slow, like walking into weather. I followed close enough to cut off detours. He reached for a framed photo and paused. Not tonight, I said, and his fingers curled inward. He slid open a drawer and pulled passports and titles. I photographed each item and zipped the bag closed. He approached the console and placed his building fob flat. Add garage remote, I reminded, palm still raised. He dug into a coat pocket and produced it reluctantly. I set both beside the shared mailbox key. He turned toward the bedroom with a hopeful glance. No, I said, and the word landed like a seal. Take a jacket and leave the dresser alone. He exhaled hard and obeyed without more theater. My phone vibrated with a new group update. Paula had placed a fraud alert with the bank. She posted the case number and a short instruction. Freeze supplemental cards until morning, her message read. I opened the bank app and initiated the freeze. A confirmation ticked over and my shoulders unlocked one notch. He watched the screen and swallowed like it hurt. The sound barely registered over the relief. Another message arrived from the same thread. Police desk accepts walk-ins until 10, Paula typed. I checked the clock and did the math. We had time if we moved now with purpose. Leave the phone unlocked here, I told him. Bring your wallet and nothing else electronic. He hesitated long enough to set off alarms inside me. I held out my hand and waded through his panic. He placed the device in my palm without further stalling. I opened the health settings and disabled emergency bypass. No calls could jump the line while we traveled. Control finally felt like something I could hold. The elevator doors closed and I watched him shake. He kept staring at the floor numbers and blinking. I'm sorry, slipped out in a thin rhythm. I let it pass and focused on the plan. We reached the lobby and crossed with quick steps. Outside, night carried noise that kept me awake. I felt the old version of me lag behind. I kept walking because the new version refused. At the station counter, a clerk looked up and listened. Unauthorized spending and identity mislabeling, I stated crisp. She handed forms and pointed to a quiet side desk. We wrote details while my heart steadied into iron. He tried to soften the narrative with small words. I wrote clean facts and attached every screenshot. She accepted the packet and stamped a receipt. Copies will be emailed within the hour, she promised. We stepped back toward the street and regrouped. Landlord, I said, and dialed the emergency number. A sleepy voice answered and asked for names. I listed ours and the apartment line on the lease. We need in-person verification at the office tomorrow, I continued. No changes without both signatures present. A pause, then an agreement recorded on their end. I hung up and felt ground return under my shoes. He leaned against the car and rubbed his eyes. Do we talk? He asked, voice half air. We verify, I replied and opened the driver door. He took the passenger seat like someone learning gravity. At a red light, her contact popped up again. Not a message, a FaceTime invite with bold urgency. I answered and angled the camera toward the dashboard. We filed the report, I said, keeping it short. Good, she replied, breath controlled but strong. I changed my locks and sent the locksmith receipt. Our group chat pinged with the image seconds later. Her readiness steadied me and probably saved me. Back at the building, I parked on the street. No garage access until this is settled, I explained. He nodded once and touched the remote in memory. That habit would die by morning if I had to. We re-entered the lobby and paused under the camera. Say your plan, I requested for. Sing him to hear himself. He took a breath and tried to choose words carefully. Documents leave proof tomorrow, no contact after 10. Add full disclosure of spending by noon, I said. He blinked and repeated the lines slower and heavier. By noon, he confirmed, and the elevator chimed like punctuation. We rode up without speaking for 12 floors. Inside, he placed the bag near the door. He removed a small journal and glanced at me. Writing is fine, I allowed, watching for hidden tech. He flipped it open and scribbled like time was thin. I collected the spare keys from the hook and counted. One missing. I kept my face neutral and waited. He walked to the coat closet and reached inside. A second set clinked into my palm a moment later. Mailbox stays with me until the bank clears, I said. New mail would not vanish into pockets tonight. He lowered his head and adjusted the strap on his bag. I held the door open and watched his posture collapse. He stepped into the hall and paused on the line. For what it's worth, he started, eyes glassy. Make it worth paperwork, I answered and closed the door. The latch clicked and the apartment finally felt mine again. I set the phone on the counter and exhaled. My hand still shook, but the tremor brought focus. I opened a notes page and titled it Rules. Then I wrote the first 3 like they were laws. 1. All passwords changed tonight and logged in print. 2. Every subscription reviewed and either kept or killed. 3. No private threads remain unarchived by morning. Each line steadied my ribs and cleared out fog. A new ping cut through the quiet from his device. Unknown number, you okay? It asked with a small heart. I replied with one sentence that burned going out. Contact this number again and the report expands. The dots appeared, then vanished and never returned. I locked the phone and placed it face up. I poured water and forced 3 deep swallows. My body needed command as much as my mind. I opened the group chat and typed a plan. Police done, landlord queued, bank locked, keys seized. Paula replied with a thumbs up and a lawyer contact. Call at 9 sharp, her note read with certainty. I powered on my laptop and started password resets. Email, cloud, utility accounts, streaming services. Each confirmation landed in my inbox like a drumbeat. Somewhere along the line, my shoulders finally dropped. Her name lit my screen with a fresh message. We return the apartment keys together tomorrow, she wrote. Agreed, I answered and added the time and address. No more solo meetings with anyone who could pivot. I checked the clock again and counted hours left. Sleep would be short and full of alarms. I set reminders for morning tasks in 2 lists. Personal, legal, nothing else earned space tonight. My phone rang with an unknown local number. Dispatch here, a calm voice announced through static. Your case is logged and assigned for follow-up. I thanked her and saved the number with a star. I carried his device to the entry table and paused. Final step for the night was simple and strict. I enabled Lost Mode on his old tablet from settings. The map pinpointed a storage locker 3 blocks away. I grabbed my jacket and texted the group chat again. Quick walk to confirm tablet location, I wrote crisp. Paula replied with a location share and a simple yes. She would meet me at the corner in 10. I stepped into the hallway and locked the door. Behind it, the silence felt earned and powerful. I walked toward the elevator and let adrenaline thin out. Tomorrow held courtrooms and signatures and one more collision. The doors opened and I caught my reflection head on. I looked like someone who could finish hard things. The elevator dropped and my stomach followed late. I smiled anyway because the fear didn't lead anymore. Outside, the night air cooled the last shaking. Paula's car turned the corner and flashed twice. I raised a hand and walked toward the curb. Somewhere ahead, a storage door waited for truth. Paula pulled up and cracked her window 2 inches. Storage code, she prompted, palm out and steady. I showed the tablet screen with the locker number blinking. Follow me close, she said, and I felt my jaw set. We walked past numbered doors while I tracked the map. The dot shifted as if something inside was awake. I tightened my grip on the device and kept pace. Number 17 glowed on the screen and on the door. Record, Paula said, lifting her phone with a practiced angle. I tried the handle and felt resistance at the latch. We listened for movement and heard nothing through the metal. Open it anyway, she whispered, and my pulse jumped. The lock snapped free with the code I entered. I raised the tablet like a badge and pushed inward. Shelf unit, flat bin, small safe the size of a book. The dot on my screen settled over the safe. Call dispatch, Paula murmured, eyes on TH. E-safe dial. I tapped the saved number and identified the case. We found an electronic registered to him at this site, I stated. Stay put, dispatch ordered, and I clicked on speaker. I tried the safe with his usual pass sequence in reverse. Second try, click, a hinge protested and then gave. Inside lay the tablet, a ring box, 2 spare remotes. Paula zoomed and captured the contents in one clear sweep. Inventory on video, she said, moving slow and precise. I pressed the tablet awake with my finger held steady. It opened to a folder named Trust with 3 recordings. I tapped the latest and his voice filled the air. I am not ready, it began, weary and rehearsed. He listed reasons like bullet points arranged for applause. I recognized phrases from the scripts folder at dinner. Paula frowned and flicked her eyes toward the open door. We have what we need, she said under her breath. I ended the clip and backed out to the route. Another file showed scanned forms with false addresses everywhere. I selected all and started a secure upload to my drive. Footsteps approached down the corridor and then paused. A security guard appeared with a clipboard and a radio. Your case was flagged and approved for evidence collection, he announced. He scanned our receipt and the ticket number matched. I handed him the remotes in the ring box. Include chain of custody in the report, I requested. He sealed them in a clear bag and nodded once. Paula signed the line after mine without blinking. We closed the safe and left the locker unlocked. Police will sweep later, the guard assured with authority. Outside, the air steadied my racing thoughts enough. Paula touched my sleeve and waited for eye contact. You're doing surgical work, she said, voice low. Tomorrow you finish the cut, she added, firm. I nodded and saved the video to 2 backups. Belts and suspenders because loose ends sink people. Back home, my door stayed chained while I wrote. List for morning, landlord, bank branch, locksmith confirmation email. Attorney call at 9 on the dot with documents. I set 3 alarms and left the phone on loud. Sleep came in slices and never fully held. When I woke, resolve returned stronger than appetite. I showered on autopilot and pulled on clean clothes. By 8:30, I stood at the building office. The manager checked his calendar and waved me in. Keys ready, he asked, already reaching for a tray. I placed both tags in the mailbox, copy down. Remove his access by 9, I said, and he nodded. At 9 sharp, the attorney answered on the first ring. Outline what you want, her voice carried no softness. Partition assets, freeze joint lines, emergency order for the lease, I summarized. Send all exhibits now, she replied, and I hit share. Next, ask for a preservation letter to his employer, Paula texted. I forwarded that instruction to the attorney without delay. Drafting came back with a calendar invite for noon. I breathed and felt a small corner of muscle unclench. Phone buzzed with an unknown number and I answered. Landlord compliance here, the caller announced, clipped and clear. His badge codes are removed and tenant file flagged. I thanked him and saved the voicemail for the folder. My screen lit again with a message from the group. She had emailed her statement to the officer in charge. Attached were screenshots of the lease addendum and receipts. A checkmark appeared, our threads were finally aligned. He texted from a new contact with a short plea. Can we talk before you meet lawyers, it read. I stared at the letters and felt old instincts stir. Send your accounting by noon or communications stop, I answered. He replied with a spreadsheet link that required permission. I denied the request and asked for a PDF. 3 minutes later, a file arrived with rows and totals. I opened it and saw a hole the size of months. Explain the missing charges labeled personal, I wrote back. Dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, and then froze. No answer followed, and the deadline kept marching. I flagged the line and forwarded the file to counsel. At the bank counter, I placed the dispute packet down. The clerk scanned the case number and printed a ledger. Interim credits within 10 business days, she explained. Final review may take longer, she added, sober. I want him removed from this account today, I said. She checked the names and nodded to her supervisor. A few keystrokes later, the profile lost 1 user. I signed and felt heat leave the back of my neck. Inside the branch lobby, my phone vibrated with his call. I answered and walked toward a corner near the exit. Before noon, I reminded, keeping my voice level. I'm outside, he blurted, and I saw him through the glass. Stay there, I said, and met him on the sidewalk. He held a paper bag like surrender made tangible. Inside were receipts, a spare SIM, and 2 gift cards. I lifted each item and photographed them where we stood. Anything else? I asked, eyes on his pockets. He patted them twice and shook his head slowly. Then listen, I said, and I watched him brace. Discovery continues, contact goes through email, no drop-ins. He swallowed and nodded and looked like Winter. I'll send payroll records by 5, he managed. 4, I corrected, and the number pinched his face. He walked away because there was nowhere else to stand. At noon, the attorney's video tile filled my screen. Preservation letters ready for employer and landlord, she reported. We'll file temporary orders tomorrow at 9, she continued. Bring identification and copies of everything you gathered. I have more, I said, and uploaded the storage video. Her eyebrows lifted and then reset to neutral. Excellent, she affirmed. This shortens ugly parts significantly. She sent a checklist for my signature and logged off. My doorbell rang and I checked the camera before opening. Courier stood with a flat envelope and a clipboard. Service copy of the initial petition, he announced crisply. I signed and felt the line between phases harden. Paula texted a picture from the landlord office foyer. Mission complete, she wrote, holding 2 canceled badges. I exhaled and thanked her out loud in my kitchen. Her reply pinged with a single word that mattered. Forward. Afternoon stretched into logistics and small victories. Each password changed without trouble and each alert triggered. No unusual activity pinged after the freezes locked in. An hour later, the silence felt like a clean room. He broke it with a long message at 3:50. Rows of numbers, screenshots, a short apology pretending to be strategy. I noted the totals and ignored the flourishes entirely. Received, I replied and copied the attorney immediately. 4:15 brought a call from an unknown internal line. Human Resources here, the woman introduced calmly. We've received the preservation request and acknowledge the scope. Thank you, I answered, because leverage lives in paperwork. At 5, a final delivery updated in the group chat. Her credit card company reversed the last set of charges. She sent a short video pouring a drink into the sink. Reset, she captioned, and I smiled despite myself. By 6, I stood outside the restaurant from the night before. Not for dinner, for a formal letter addressed to management. I handed the envelope to the same manager from earlier. Bans on celebratory setups under his accounts, I requested. He read the letter and nodded, expression stern. Our staff wrote incident notes after you left, he offered. Happy to provide a statement if needed, he added. I accepted and saved the PDF he emailed on the spot. Dusk caught the edges of the street and made shadows honest. I met her at the storage facility with copies. One more sweep, she suggested, gesturing toward the lockers. We walked back to 17 and opened it together. Nothing new waited on the shelf or floor. I snapped 2 photos anyway and marked the time. We closed up and double-checked the code screens. No reason to return unless someone invited us. Outside, she handed me a sealed envelope. I wrote a timeline in case court moves fast, she said. I tucked it into my bag and felt gratitude flare. We won't need every line, but we might, I answered. We parted at the corner with a quick embrace. No speeches, just the weight of shared survival. I turned toward home and counted intersections like steps. Halfway there, my phone buzzed with a final message. Take the apartment, he wrote, text stripped of flair. I'll move my things after the hearing, it continued. I stared at the words and felt zero hesitation. Confirm in writing through counsel, I replied and locked my screen. Back at the door, I paused and looked in. Everything sat where I had chosen to leave it. Quiet held like a decision that wouldn't wobble. I crossed the threshold and set my bag down deliberately. I opened a fresh note and typed a single sentence. I am done being an option in someone else's plan. Then I added the next line before I could stall. Commitment is mutual, or it is a story I exit. I forwarded the note to my email and printed it. A page slid out and I taped it at eye level. Not as decor, as a contract with my future. I read it twice and felt my ribs loosen. A knock landed on the door and stopped me cold. I checked the camera and saw a neighbor holding a package. I opened just enough to take the box and smile. New name on the intercom tomorrow, I told myself quietly. I sat at the table and dialed my sister. When she answered, I breathed once before speaking. It's done for real, I said, keeping my tone anchored. Good, she replied, and the word reached straight through. We made a plan for the weekend in 3 lines. No dramatic gestures, just breakfast and a long walk. I hung up a. Indy felt the arc complete itself. Not tidy, not pretty, but closed enough to sleep. Before bed, I opened the group chat for one last note. Court tomorrow, I typed, thank you for showing up. Paula responded with a checkmark and a small heart. She added one last rule that made me grin. Keep receipts for your piece. I powered off his device and placed it in a drawer. Face up, silent, irrelevant now to my choices. I locked the drawer and pocketed the key with intention. Then I turned off the light and let night arrive.